The wedding hall glittered with lights, laughter, and music. Guests danced, glasses clinked, and smiles filled the room. But in one quiet corner stood Amelie, her hands trembling, her eyes lowered to the floor. Just moments ago, her father had looked her in the eye and said coldly, "You're not family." His words cut deeper than any knife. The joy around her faded, replaced by whispers and stares. Some people laughed softly, others looked away in pity. Amelie's heart pounded, but she refused to cry. She lifted her head, and though her eyes shimmered with tears, there was a spark of strength in them, a fire that no insult could kill. Then, the huge golden doors at the back of the hall swung open. The music stopped. Two strangers stepped inside, tall, graceful, dressed in rich African attire that shimmered under the lights. Their presence commanded silence. Every guest turned to look. The woman's eyes found Amelie instantly, soft with emotion, while the man's voice was steady and strong as he spoke. "We're here for our daughter." The crowd gasped. Amelie froze, confusion flooding her face. Her father's wine glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. The strangers walked closer, their steps calm and certain. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "We've been searching for you, Amelie." In that moment, the girl everyone ignored became the center of the room, and the truth that had been hidden for years was about to change everything. Amelie had always known she was different. While her sister wore new clothes and ate at the big table, Amelie spent her days cooking, cleaning, and running errands. Her father's words were sharp, her stepmother's eyes cold. They never called her daughter. They called her girl. When guests visited, she served food but was never allowed to sit down. Every birthday, she watched her sister unwrap gifts while she pretended not to care. Deep inside, she often asked herself why she was treated like she didn't belong. But no one ever answered. That night, at her sister's wedding, the hall glowed with gold lights and laughter. Everyone was dressed beautifully, taking pictures and celebrating love. Amelie stood quietly at the back, wearing a simple dress she had stitched herself. She smiled softly, but inside her heart felt heavy. Then her father noticed her and his face twisted with disgust. "Why are you even here?" he shouted loud enough for everyone to hear. The music stopped. Guests turned. "You were a mistake we never wanted," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. Gasps filled the air. Amelie froze. The tears she tried to hide began to fall. She wanted to disappear. As the crowd whispered and phones began to record, the grand doors of the hall opened slowly. Two elders stepped inside, a man and a woman dressed in fine traditional attire, the kind that spoke of respect and power. Their presence demanded silence. The woman's eyes searched the room until they landed on Amelie. Her face softened, her lips trembling. In her hand, she held a golden locket that shimmered under the light, the same design that hung around Amelie's neck, a necklace she had worn all her life without knowing where it came from. The woman's voice broke the heavy silence. "We've been looking for her for 25 years, she said, her eyes glistening with tears. The hall fell completely quiet. Amelie's father's face turned pale. He stuttered, "Who are you?" The man stepped forward, his voice deep and calm. "We are her parents." The words hit the room like thunder. Guests gasped again. Amelie's hands began to shake. She touched the locket on her neck and looked at the one in the woman's hand, they were identical. The truth began to sink in. The woman walked toward her slowly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "My child," she whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. Amelie stood frozen, her heart racing, her mind spinning. The same people who had mocked her now watched in silence. Her so-called father tried to speak, but his voice cracked. The real parents embraced Amelie gently, and the hall filled with shocked murmurs. For years, she had been treated like a servant, a mistake. But in one moment, everything changed. The girl they rejected had just found where she truly belonged, and the truth had finally come home. Amelie's chest felt tight as she rushed toward the door, her vision blurry with tears. The laughter and music that once filled the wedding hall now sounded cruel, distant, like echoes of a nightmare. She just wanted to leave, to escape the stares and whispers that burned into her back. But as she reached the exit, her father stepped in front of her, blocking the way. His face was filled with anger, not guilt. "You're not going anywhere," he barked. "Security! Take her out." Two large guards in black suits moved toward her. Amelie froze. The humiliation was unbearable. Even after everything, he still wanted to make her feel small. The guests gasped, some whispering, others filming on their phones. Just as one guard reached out to grab her arm, a loud sound came from outside, the roar of engines. Heads turned toward the glass doors as a sleek black convoy of luxury cars stopped in front of the venue. The music stopped completely. Everyone waited, silent and tense. The doors swung open, and in walked a tall man in a custom black suit beside a graceful woman dressed in gold traditional attire. Their presence filled the room instantly, confident, powerful, and commanding respect. People began to whisper. "Is that them? The Beale family?" The man's eyes locked on Amelie. His voice was deep and calm, but carried authority that silenced the entire hall. "Touch her," he said coldly to the guards, "and you'll regret it." The guards froze, stepping back immediately. Amelie's father's face went pale. The man walked closer, the woman beside him, and for a moment, the whole world seemed to hold its breath. Cameras flashed. Everyone knew these faces, they were known throughout the city, admired for their wealth and generosity. But no one understood why they were here. The woman reached into her purse and pulled out a small photo. Her hand trembled as she showed it to the crowd. "We've come for our daughter," she said softly. "Her name is Amelie." The crowd gasped. Amelie stared, unable to move. "No," her father stammered. "She's lying. She's ours." But the man turned toward him with eyes so cold that even the guards stepped back again. "You kept her hidden for years," he said sharply. "Do you think the truth wouldn't come out?" Then he turned to Amelie. "My child," he said gently, his tone changing completely. "We've searched for you since the day you were taken from us." The woman's tears fell freely as she opened her arms. Amelie hesitated, then slowly stepped forward. The moment they embraced, the hall erupted, gasps, applause, whispers, disbelief. Cameras flashed like lightning. Amelie, the girl who had been shamed and thrown aside, now stood in the center of the room, revealed as the long-lost daughter of one of the richest families in the country. Her so-called father dropped to his knees, speechless. The same people who mocked her now looked at her with awe. The servant girl had just become the heiress to a billion-dollar legacy. The wedding hall glittered with gold and laughter as Amelie stood quietly near the back. Her dress was plain, one she had sewn herself, while her stepsister sparkled in diamonds and silk. Guests praised the bride's beauty and wealth, but when their eyes drifted to Amelie, some smiled mockingly, whispering behind their hands. Her stepmother smirked and said loudly, "At least she tried to look presentable." Laughter followed. Amelie stayed silent, her eyes calm but her heart aching. She had spent years being the shadow in her own family, treated like she was nothing more than a servant. Then the moment everyone least expected came. The grand doors opened again, and her real parents, the powerful couple who had claimed her earlier, stepped forward with pride. The room fell silent. Her mother reached into a small velvet box and pulled out a shining gold pendant shaped like a royal crest. The symbol gleamed under the lights, beautiful and strong. "This belongs to you, our daughter," she said softly as she placed it around Amelie's neck. Gasps spread through the hall. Her stepmother's face went white, she stumbled and fainted into her husband's arms. Her father stood frozen, color draining from his cheeks. The groom's family whispered in shock, unable to believe what they were seeing. The same girl they had mocked for her simple dress now stood tall beside her real parents, dressed not in diamonds but in dignity. Amelie looked at the people who had laughed at her all her life. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The pendant around her neck said everything. The girl they once threw away was now the true heir, the real daughter, and the one destiny had chosen all along. The music stopped suddenly as whispers spread across the wedding hall. The wedding planner, unsure of what to do, raised a shaky hand and told the DJ to pause. The room fell silent except for the clicking of cameras and the soft sound of gasps. All eyes were on Amelie and the two people standing proudly beside her. Her stepfather's face was red with panic, and her stepmother clutched her pearls, looking around desperately for help. "This is a misunderstanding," her stepfather shouted, stepping forward. "We raised her. We gave her a home." His voice cracked, part anger, part fear. The guests murmured among themselves. Everyone had seen how Amelie was treated in that house. They knew those words were lies. Then Amelie's real father stepped forward. His calm, deep voice filled the room, cutting through the noise like a blade. "You raised her," he said softly. "No. You used her." The words hit harder than a shout. The hall went completely still. The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an envelope stamped with a gold seal. He opened it slowly and handed it to Amelie. "These are the official documents," he said. "Your adoption has been reversed by the government. You are free, my daughter." Amelie's hands trembled as she held the papers. Her stepfather tried to speak again, but the words wouldn't come out. Her stepmother swayed, her face pale as dust. The cameras flashed faster now, capturing every second of the scene. Amelie looked at the people who had once mocked her, starved her of love, and called her worthless. For a moment, their eyes met, hers filled with quiet strength, theirs with shame. Then she turned to her real parents. Her mother reached for her hand, and together they walked out of the hall. No words, no tears, just silence and power. Behind them, the crowd stood frozen, watching the girl who had been humiliated all her life walk away like the queen she truly was. That night, the city buzzed with gossip. Videos from the wedding were already everywhere, on social media, news sites, and group chats. Everyone was talking about the girl who went from being humiliated to being found by her real parents, the famous Mbiel family. Amelie's name was on every screen. But while the world talked, she sat quietly at a long dining table surrounded by her true family. The same girl who once ate alone in the kitchen now laughed softly as her real mother served her food with love. Her father smiled with pride, watching her finally eat without fear or sadness. Meanwhile, her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Hundreds of messages filled the screen, some from guests who had laughed at her, some from old friends who had stayed silent when she was insulted. "Amelie, we're so sorry. We didn't know. Please forgive us." Even her stepsister had sent a message filled with crying emojis. But Amelie didn't reply to a single one. She turned her phone face down and focused on the warmth around her, the family that had never stopped searching for her. By morning, the headlines took over every newspaper and TV channel. "Heiress found at sister's wedding." Photos of Amelie standing beside her real parents went viral. Everyone wanted her story. The same people who once ignored her now called her an inspiration. Outside her new home, a grand mansion surrounded by tall gates, a familiar figure stood waiting. Her old father, the man who had told her, "You're not family," was now begging to see her. He shouted her name, his voice breaking with regret. But the guards didn't move. Miss Amelie gave strict orders, one said calmly. "No visitors." From her balcony, Amelie saw him standing there, small and desperate. She didn't feel anger, only peace. She turned away, smiling softly to herself. The girl he once rejected now lived the life he could only dream of, and this time, she didn't need his approval. Months passed, and life began to change, but not for everyone. The once powerful family that had treated Amelie like a servant started to fall apart. Their business, once shining with wealth and pride, began to crumble piece by piece. Clients pulled out, investors disappeared, and rumors spread that they were drowning in debt. The stepfather who had once bragged about his success now spent his days making desperate phone calls that no one answered. The stepmother who used to mock Amelie's simple clothes now sold her jewelry to pay bills. Even the proud stepsister, who once flaunted diamonds, was seen crying outside a bank. The same people who had looked down on Amelie were now losing everything they had. While their world fell apart, Amelie's was blooming brighter than ever. Instead of focusing on revenge, she chose to build. With the help of her real family, she started a foundation in her hometown, one that built schools, hospitals, and homes for families in need. She visited villages where children used to study under trees and helped them get real classrooms. She funded clinics where mothers could finally receive care and medicine. People began calling her Mama Hope, the woman who turned pain into purpose. Everywhere she went, she was greeted with love, not fear. Reporters followed her story closely. Cameras flashed whenever she appeared in public. One day, during a press conference, a reporter finally asked, "Amelie, do you forgive your old family?" The room fell quiet. Amelie smiled softly, her eyes calm and kind. "Forgive them," she repeated gently. "They said I wasn't family, I simply respected their wish." Her answer spread across the internet within hours, turning into one of the most shared quotes of the year. And as her stepfamily's house emptied and their company doors closed for good, Amelie stood tall, surrounded by people who loved her, proof that kindness, not revenge, was the greatest victory of all. A year later, the world watched as Amelie's own wedding became the event of the year. The venue shimmered like a dream, golden lights, fresh white roses, and music that floated through the air like a blessing. And then, the doors opened. Amelie appeared, glowing in a royal gold gown that sparkled with every step she took. Her smile was soft but full of strength, the kind that only comes from surviving pain. Her true parents walked proudly beside her, their eyes shining with pride and love. Every guest turned their head, unable to look away. The girl they once pitied now looked like a queen walking toward her forever. Phones clicked, cameras flashed, but Amelie didn't care about any of that. She looked only ahead, toward the man waiting for her at the altar, someone who loved her for her heart, not her name. The whispers in the crowd were filled with awe. "She's so beautiful. She really deserves this. Look how far she's come." At the very back, standing quietly in the shadows, was her former father. His suit was worn, his eyes red with regret. As he watched her walk down the aisle, tears rolled down his face. He wanted to call out to her, to say sorry for all the years of cruelty, but he couldn't. His voice wouldn't come. Amelie didn't look back. Not once. She had already forgiven him in her heart, but she had no need to return to the past. Every step she took down that aisle was a step away from the pain and into peace. The girl who had once been cast aside now stood tall, radiant, and loved. She wasn't just walking into a marriage, she was walking into her destiny, the life she was always meant to live.